At the corner of Hollywood and Divine.
I am Drew Hammer,
I am John Luciano.
and we have absolutely no idea what we're doing.
Absolutely none. But here we are.
Here we are, and we're going to do this first episode on how Hollywood and Divine even came about.
How we
and
met.
How we met, and the crazy stories, and
So we come from completely opposite worlds.
Right.
Opposite, probably many ways.
right.
But we met through your son, Army.
Yes, we did. We're at the gym, and you two were like, well, let's all go have breakfast afterwards. Well, who passes that up?
Right.
Any time with my son is fabulous.
Well, let's give a little backstory before that.
Okay.
Okay, so Army was my neighbor.
Yes.
And one day, Army said to me, I'm bringing you to the gym. So I was like, okay. So he threw me on his Vespa with a helmet. I've never been on a Vespa before.
Oh.
And I was screaming the whole way. And, the next thing you know, I'm addicted to the gym. And it became really like one of my happy places. And
Yes.
then one day he
It's a good
said,
addiction.
yeah. And then one day he said, my mom's coming. I want you to meet her. I said, I'd love to. And then the next thing I see, this vision at the gym, dressed in like bright green and
Of course, I'm
all-
a color person.
all
I can't help
dolled up.
myself.
and we
Not
just
necessarily dolled up. when
we
you go
we
to
hit
the
it
gym.
off.
Yes, we did.
And at that breakfast, which you mentioned, do you remember what happened?
I could tell you exactly.
Why
what.
don't you tell everyone?
So, first of all, I want to talk about how you are a new John because you have lost 100 pounds.
Correct.
And when I met you, you had probably lost 55 pounds.
Exactly.
And now here you are at your ideal weight. And I've never met anybody more disciplined than you. You go to the gym 7 days a week. You get on that treadmill and you're
I'm
running. and using your
exercising. My arms are flailing. I'm doing choreography. Yes.
And I mean, literally, it's like, 150 calories at this. And I mean, I've just never met anyone more disciplined. So I have to say, I'm very proud of
Well-
you because if I have to lose 5 pounds, I get
But you
a little
don't.
overwhelmed.
You're at your birth weight, so you don't need to lose anything. But
Well,
what happened was I was morbidly obese, and I wasn't. I always was very, very thin. And then COVID came and really isolated me and did a number.
Right.
And I'm more of an outgoing social person. And when you're home and you're able to just eat what you want
right.
with nothing to do, you eat and you eat. And it was like 2:00 donuts, 4:00 pizza, 6:00
Well,
Chinese
and
food.
it's a drug like
Right.
anything
Yeah,
else.
absolutely.
And people turn to something usually during COVID. And the funny thing is, I actually lost weight in COVID.
Of course you
because,
did.
well, no,
'Cause you're
restaurants were closed. And I was living in Scottsdale, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to sit around. So I'd go bike riding. I would go to the golf course and go to the driving ranges. And because I wasn't going to restaurants, I wasn't eating the bread and butter in the beginning.
I
And
was ordering it in. Yeah, so I lost the weight, and when
So
we met,
proud of you.
I was about 55 pounds into the 100.
right,
And then, but it wasn't for vanity reasons, it was for health reasons.
Right.
I had some heart issues, which I discovered January of 2025. And then you,
so we're just talking.
right,
And he says, well, I have a serious heart condition and I will probably have to have open heart surgery. So losing this weight is going to help, but I probably will still have to have the surgery. Well, that's something very dangerous to say to me
Well,
because
but
I had a
truthful.
father who had a healing ministry, and I've seen miraculous healings my entire life, and I believe God has given me a healing ministry. So you just teed me right up that day.
I did. And
So
you
I said,
swung
well,
the
John,
shot, and you
yes,
had
I
a home run.
did. So I said, John, what do you believe? And you said, well, I grew up Catholic. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus, but, I don't really go to church or anything. And so I said to you, I said, well, I think Jesus wants to heal you. I said, but first, the eternal healing is when you invite Jesus to come into your heart, because that's a spiritual healing and that's eternity. Because once you accept Jesus in your heart, then he promises us eternal life with him. So then I said, I believe also God wants to heal you physically. So I said, are you open to me praying for you right here?
In
And
the
then-
middle of Potato Louie in West Hollywood.
Exactly.
So it
Just to
wasn't
put
right.
everything in
Just to put it in
context.
perspective. So it's like a she.
Hey, I've been kicked out of worse places.
Right. It's a she West Hollywood
Right.
restaurant,
Right.
and in the middle of the restaurant
Never stopped me.
with Army there, and
Yes.
I'm like,
And-
sure, why not? It seems like a good idea between the
You're
French
like, sure,
toast. Why not?
Whereas in my son, who has seen it his entire life, says, wait, you're going to do it
Right here, right here.
I go, yes, I am. I've been
And she
kicked
did.
out of worse places. So I took your hand and we asked Jesus to come
And no,
into
you
our
actually
heart.
put your hand on my heart.
Oh, yes, I
You
oh,
did.
I did.
I have a photo of it. I actually Army took the photo.
Did he?
He did.
Wow, I
He
want
did.
a copy of that.
I'll give it to you.
So I prayed for you. We prayed together.
We did.
I asked Jesus to heal your heart because when he died on the cross, he said it's finished. He took the stripes for our healing, and I take Jesus at his word. So tell what happened when you went back the following week for your heart checkup.
Right. So I have a wonderful cardiologist right down the street at UCLA, and I went for all my blood work and my test, and she said, you don't have a whiff of heart disease.
A whiff.
Not a whiff.
And I mean, you did the whole
Yeah.
EKG.
Oh,
where you're
I did
running on the
everything. No,
treadmill.
I did
Didn't
everything.
you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Everything. Every test.
Not one
Right.
thing wrong with your heart.
Right. So yeah, I still have to take care of it. I still have to. I'm not going
to
to
do our
ignore.
part.
Yeah, I have to do my part.
Right.
But it was definitely.
You know, that binds people together for the rest of our lives, doesn't it?
It does.
I mean, how good is God?
Yeah.
So you say, how would you?
I describe myself now as Christian light, where I don't know. Like I grew up Catholic. I'm very spiritual.
Right.
And there's a lot of things that I'm not sure of.
Right.
And because if
That's
you're,
why we're friends.
because if you're right, and I think the beauty of our friendship is
Yes.
you meet me where I'm at,
Right.
I meet you where you're at,
Yes.
and we bring sometimes different perspectives to the table,
Yes.
and different points of view,
Right.
but we're respectful of one another, and it's not preaching to each other, and it's
Right.
not judging each other.
Right.
It's trying to understand each other.
Well, first of all, we're not supposed to judge anybody. Who are we to judge? God is the only judge. He's the ultimate judge.
I
right?
still judge people's outfits. And like this, I like, but I'm a judger.
You contributed. You're my stylist.
I'm a
You gave me
judger.
this jacket.
I judge.
It's fabulous.
But yeah, no, I think it's the beauty of our friendship is I think it's very real. And what we'll talk about, one of the things is I have a lot of Hollywood friends.
Yes.
Where Hollywood friends they're your friends when they need something from you.
Yes.
And I was in the entertainment business for 25 years.
Yes.
And we'll talk about that.
Yes.
And I helped a lot of celebrities with publicity. I was known as a fixer. If they had a
Right.
problem, I would fix their problems. I would
Yes.
get them wonderful press. I would get them,
Right.
I would like manage things what they needed to have managed. But when you need a favor, good luck.
Yeah. Hello.
Right.
Is anybody
Well,
home?
right. But which is one of the things I think when we first talked about
Right.
was, I don't know if you remember, the first thing I said to you was you raised a really good son.
Yes, you
Because
did.
for being a movie star,
Right.
which he is,
He's a good man.
Army's a really good guy. And,
He
and
is.
I don't consider him a Hollywood friend. We have a very real friendship.
Right.
As you know,
Right.
I've never seen his movies. I
Right.
know nothing about
Right.
his career.
Right.
But it's a real friendship,
Right.
which is very hard to find.
Right.
And I think
I have two sons that are amazing human beings. They're good people.
I've never met Victor, so I
Right.
can't.
Right.
But for Army, so I think that's kind of one of the things that we kind of bonded over as well.
Sure,
you know?
course.
And
Right.
I-
and the three of us started going to the gym together,
Going to
drinking
lunch,
coffee
right.
afterwards, going to
Going
lunch,
to
and
dinner and
yes, yes,
fun dinners, having fights at dinners over who's going to pay the check.
Yes.
Making a scene at Steak 48. Who's gonna-
always our
yeah.
favorite restaurant.
right? Who's going to pay?
Well, and that's another thing I want to say. That first time we went to Steak 48, this waitress, I'm like,
Ignored us.
completely
Only
ignored
had
us.
eyes for Army.
He was the only person in the room.
Right.
And I'm like,
You asked for like a
she's
lemon,
flirting
we'd
with
still be
him.
waiting there.
My gosh, we didn't
I
get half the
ordered
things
a salmon. I got something. What's going on here?
I know, right?
It was like what?
And I'm like, do you not understand?
Like-
I'm his mother. You
know-
don't flirt with somebody
Oh, she was
in front
flirting.
of their mother.
They were talking about tattoos. They were talking
Oh, yeah.
about this.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, I'm choking over here. I'm like, oh, we'll get to you. Don't worry.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
But anyway, so back to how this whole started. When we developed our friendship,
yes.
I said to you, you need to do something. I said,
Yes.
and I saw it now. You
So
filmed
this
it.
is all your fault.
Well, it's,
You pushed me into this.
I basically did.
You did.
But you have a camera presence, you have a spark, and you know, you could see where Army gets a lot of his talent and his ability to talk to people. I think you're natural. And I said, you need to do something. And then you said, with you, that you wanted it with me. And I said, oh, no, no, no. And then we said, okay, maybe.
Well, because we always had a funny banter.
Right.
And then you called and you're like, I have the name. I said, what? Hollywood and Divine. And that play on words with Hollywood and Vine. It is genius.
And you came up with the logo.
And thank you, Jerry, for having this all done for us. It's so fabulous.
And I think because I bring the Hollywood aspect.
Yes.
And you bring the divine aspect.
Yes.
And I think
It's
that's
perfect.
right. That's very perfect.
Yes.
And fast forward to we still don't know what we're doing, but here we are.
We are.
And
that's exactly right.
Right. We're a podcast that
Okay, so John, with all of your connections
Correct.
in Hollywood over the years, all of a sudden, before we even had a show, I'm getting an email from TMZ that they want to interview me about a new podcast we're doing. And I'm calling John going, wait a minute, we don't even have a podcast yet. And he goes, oh, they've already called you? And then who else? Page 6.
Page 6 made us the lead story, which is a huge deal.
Right.
And then the National Enquirer did a 2-page story on us.
Right.
And then that got picked up everywhere.
And we still had nothing.
We still, I mean, this is it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that pushed us into it.
Right.
It's like we're like, oh,
We
no,
have to-
we
now
have
we
to
have to
it.
do
It'd be
something.
so embarrassing
Right.
if we got all this publicity and we didn't do it.
Right.
So when I did TMZ, they were very kind to me. And I said, you know, one of the reasons why we wanted to do it, not the only reason, but there have been so many people canceled. Thank you, Jerry. We're still getting the kinks out here. Some people have been, you want me to sit here and hold it for you?
Say that.
We're very high class.
See, I would make an inappropriate joke, and then she'd be like, "Not on this podcast." But I really want to say the joke, but I won't.
Say it for me.
Can I say it?
Yeah.
It's not the first long hard thing they tried to pull away from me. Sorry, I can't help myself.
He cannot. He cannot. Okay, so getting back, I don't even know what I was saying now.
You were saying how we had all this publicity,
Okay.
and we were the podcast that everyone's talking about, but no one knew where to watch because we never filmed anything.
about us. But they had said, you know, what made you want to do this? And I said, well, obviously, I have a firsthand experience with my son, Army, being canceled. And I said, you know, I do believe there is a place for me too. There's a lot of women who have been abused, but I think also women can say things. And it's hard for men to fight back and to be believed. And that's what I believe happened in Army's case, which we will get into at a later time.
Well, I think one of the things I think would happen was it's not just for canceled people. I think one of the issues we've had where people are like, oh, you know, this podcast, the way I envision it, I think you would agree, it's for anyone that's gone through a hard time.
Right.
Whether it's you got canceled, you lost your job, you have an illness, you had an addiction, whatever the hard time is, a failed marriage, whatever, how you get through it.
Right.
Do you get through it through your faith? Do you get through it through yoga? Do you get through, you know, that type of thing? We're trying to get.
So it's going to be cool because you have the Hollywood perspective.
Correct.
And then I bring in what I have been taught my entire life. And not only that, but I went through an excruciating divorce and it broke my heart. He was my soulmate, the love of my life. And it really devastated me. And if I did not have God, if I did not have the divine, I'm not sure I would have made it through. Or if I had, I would have been the biggest disaster in the world. My sons probably may still say I went through it like a disaster. But, you know, I needed something bigger than myself to help me through this because I really had a tough time.
I think everyone goes thugh a tough time.
Everybody.
Everyone. No matter.
Every heart's been hammered, as I say.
Yeah. I think everyone's gone through a tough time. And I think but I think some of the misconceptions on this was it was only on cancel culture.
Right.
I mean, but I think that's important because of what Army went through.
Yes.
And what you saw firsthand.
Right.
And like, just to touch on that briefly, I didn't know Army when that happened.
Right.
But remember, I knew people that knew him.
Yes.
And remember, I had a lot of sources in the entertainment world for 25 plus years.
Right.
And my first thought was, boy, this poor guy's getting screwed. Like,
Interesting.
yeah, that was
And
my.
you didn't know any of
Because I just said, I just said he's really getting screwed. Like that was my
Wow.
instinct. That was,
Right.
and never met the guy. Never,
Right.
never. We weren't neighbors at the point. It was no crossover except we had,
Right.
not even mutual friends, mutual people we knew.
Right.
But
Right.
just reading and hearing, I'm like, he's really getting screwed.
Well, and
And I
I'll
was
tell
when,
you what was really difficult for me because as a mother, he didn't want to speak out. So I
right,
remember one day I was so mad when all this publicity was coming out. And I'm like, well, if you won't, I will.
right,
Put me on the phone because, you want to be a mama bear.
right.
You want to protect your children. And from my perspective, the very two women that came out against him, one of them stayed in my house on a holiday and was with my entire family. Trust me, there was no rape involved there. She was a very willing participant, if you will. And the other woman that, came against him on the documentary, I went to dinner with them. She was madly in love with him. And I always say, I believe they saw him as Mr. Right. He saw them as Ms. Right now
Right.
because he was not
And
in the
then,
headspace and he had been going through horrible things and he was not in a right place to be in a healthy relationship, if you will.
look, I just think it's unfortunate that we live in a society where people can be canceled for accusations.
Right.
And I think,
Unproven.
right, and I think, and even if it's, look, I can't sue Nabisco because I got fat eating Oreos. Well, I have regret. I didn't want to eat the Oreos, Nabisco. You made me eat them. So it's like, it's like if someone has sexual kinks or whatever they're into, if you agree to it, you can't go back next week and say, oh, I really didn't want to do it, but you did.
Right.
But you did.
Oh yeah,
So
on the documentary, this
which I've
woman that
never
I
seen.
had
Right.
dinner with. Well, I couldn't watch it all; it was so ridiculous. And by the way, my former sister-in-law did the documentary, and
So that's your explain who that is because
my husband's sister.
So she started it or produced
She
it.
produced. She got paid to be the producer on that. So, but here's the funny thing: she doesn't know my children. She has not seen Army and Victor since they were 5 years old. 5 and 3, I
Maybe
believe,
she
was the
needed a
last
paycheck.
time. She needed the paycheck. And, I think some people would venture to say bad publicity is better than no
Right.
publicity at all. So she did that in the guise that she knew him, and she did not know him. And that was a long story.
Well, a lot of families go through that. I don't know,
Right.
not to pivot to this, but like the Meghan Markle thing. So
Right.
her stepsister was, or half sister, sorry, the same father, was going on the shows. Oh, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, I haven't seen you in so many years. Like,
Right.
if you're somehow connected and they were related because of the name,
Right.
She probably saw an opening.
Right. She saw no.
Which goes back to why didn't he speak for himself? Which I always think, like in those situations, if someone's going to accuse me of something, I'm going to have the receipts. I'm going to
Right.
say, oh, well, this or this, or,
Right.
I think he was scared. I think he was scared and he just kind of didn't.
Well, his whole life was imploding.
Right. And I think it was COVID. And I think
Right.
everyone was scared. I mean, I was eating food all day. So I think everyone was just living this weird life.
And by the way, he was the number 3 person Googled.
You know what number
During
1
COVID.
was? Domino's Pizza, because that was me calling saying, "What's the closest Domino's?"
That's why they pay you the big bucks right
that was
there.
number 1 because I was like, pizza
That is so funny.
Yeah,
But, I mean, people were trapped in their
with
apartments or
no
homes.
news.
They
Right?
couldn't go to restaurants. They couldn't go to
They
to
couldn't
work.
post on
They
Instagram. They
couldn't
couldn't,
get any. So it was a feeding frenzy.
Frenzy.
So Army's timing was impeccable
Right.
in that, sense. So the whole thing was just like the perfect storm,
Right.
basically.
It was.
And of course, I'm his mother and I'm going to stick up for him. But, LA Times, I mean, the LA police, they, for 2 or 3 years, and they finally
Right,
came out
he
and
went
they
through.
said, there's nothing.
Right, he went through hell, and I think
Well, and one of the women who accused him of rape, by the way, She literally could not sign the affidavit
'Cause-
because there were texts saying this was mutual,
Right.
that he didn't rape me, this was mutual. So my son's career, was destroyed when nothing was proven. And I've seen these girls,
and
they were in love with him.
The sad part is, though, he's not the only one it's happened to.
That's right.
The-
And that's what we want to get to.
Right. There's a lot of people. And look, we'd love to get all these people on the show.
Right. Hopefully we will.
But I
Right.
think we can still talk about it, and we can
Yes.
still, and I think there's a lot, you can be accused of something and now it's like automatically canceled.
Right.
That's
right.
You lose your job. Or it's like, what? There just seems to be, the lines are very blurred,
Right.
and some of these stories, it's like, well, 17 years ago, I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday.
Me too.
And now you're saying 17 years. Well, I really
Right.
didn't want to do it.
Right.
It's
Well, and you were talking about how Chris Noth was one
Right.
of the perfect examples. So you know all
so
that.
right. So for him, full disclosure, I reached out to him
Uh-huh.
to be on the show, and he was a true gentleman. He was, thanked us and asked about Army and
Yes.
wished, good luck. He just didn't want to give it more oxygen, which I kind of understand.
Oops. So
Right.
here we
but,
are.
So, but I mean,
But we're defending.
right. Yeah. And
too.
I think in that situation, that was very unfortunate because, again, these were consensual things that happened
Right.
17 years ago. It was like 2007. And it's
Wow.
like, what? And then to get cut out
Do you
of.
remember when all that came out? Were you writing at the time?
Well, his came out during when the Sex and the City spinoff and Just Like That launched.
Okay.
So he filmed, the first episode.
Right.
And that arc was he was always supposed to have the heart attack and die because
Oh, okay.
you didn't prey on his heart like you did on me. You could have saved him too on the show. But
I mean,
but you didn't know him then. So
Right.
when his character died, he was supposed to appear in the last episode of the first season as like a flashback.
okay.
When she goes to Paris in her wedding gown, and they cut it all out. And I think the most unfortunate thing was, and he talks about this, how the co-stars just pretty much, we stand with the women. Now, you have worked with this guy for how many years? And that's what you say?
Right. And they were very good friends.
They were friends. I don't know how.
Sarah Jessica Parker, and they were very
Yeah.
good friends, supposedly.
I think if I'm accused of something, you know me, I hope you would say, well, that's not the John I know.
Let's give him the
Right,
benefit.
right.
Of the doubt.
Or at least, but to immediately just throw him to the wolves,
Right.
I found that.
Okay, but let me ask you this though. But do you think the women on the show had pressure
By
that
who?
if they hadn't stuck up for the women, then they would be crucified? So it's just because it's just gotten so out of hand, the whole Me Too thing.
I think it's nice to see people that have balls, that do the right thing. And, and I think
I agree.
and I think, I'm not one to give into pressure.
Right.
And if you know me, I'm,
Oh, yes.
I speak my mind.
Right.
And I think in those situations, either say nothing or be a little more neutral, not to automatically throw. I mean, I felt bad for him. I mean,
Right.
because,
Oh, it's terrible.
and I what I really feel bad for the most, though, is women that actually are victims, because
Yes.
that's who they're really hurting. Because
It diminishes.
there's a difference between having regrets,
Yes.
and we all have regrets, as I said about the Oreo. We all have regrets.
Yes.
Having a regret or actually being a victim of something.
Right.
And I think that's where regrets now well, I didn't want to, or,
Right.
Or I was pressured.
Right.
I think that's where it becomes a little more unfortunate for the people that actually are victims to stuff.
Well, that's the problem. Then when someone truly is raped,
Right.
then the people that weren't, like you said, it diminishes the real victims.
Right.
I believe.
Look,
That's the saddest
Right.
part.
I served on one jury in my life. And I don't even think you know this story, but I'll tell it to you
Okay.
quickly. It was a rape case in Chicago,
Wow.
where I'm from. And they picked me to be the foreman. Surprise, surprise. Okay. So I'm the foreman in this jury. And back then, they couldn't tell you if the defendant didn't testify, they couldn't tell you his history.
Right.
So it was a 3-day trial, and we voted, it was 11-1 voting for conviction. And one woman kept saying, no, well, she was dressed inappropriately and she asked for, like that type of thing. And I said, look, and I mean,
That's not fair.
and
Today,
right,
walk around.
right. So I said, look, the only crime she's guilty of is she was wearing white after Labor Day. I go, this is Chicago. We don't do that. And so I go, you're going to vote. I go, this is it. I'm not spending another day here. So she voted to convict. Afterwards, the judge told us it was the right decision. He was a third striker. He was a serial rapist, but that couldn't come out during the trial.
Wow.
So it was so hard. My point of the whole story is it was so hard back then to get people. And she was like a nice Christian woman with her crucifix. She was still, I'm not sure. Now, you can look at someone the wrong way and you're like, he raped me with his eye. It's like it went from one extreme to the other.
You're right.
Which is kind of scary.
Well, we need to get the pendulum back.
Yeah, I mean, just common sense.
In the center.
Yeah, just common sense. I mean,
the key is everybody needs a fair shake. Listen to both sides. And Army's gone on Pierce Morgan. I mean, he shared everything on there. And yet on Google, you're still hearing, And by the way, I called him one day and I'm like, just level with me here. I'm your mother. I said, are there any women out there running around with ribs missing?
Right.
A cannibal? Right. How do you get accused of
that's sex talk.
Well, and he was probably doing drugs at the time and drinking, and you say stupid things that you don't mean, but there's no ribs missing.
I always say this.
He would be locked up in prison forever.
If you looked at any gay guy in West Hollywood, their Grindr account, they would all be canceled because it's a different way to communicate now. So things that you wouldn't necessarily say in person via text, you're a little more aggressive, a little more kinky, a little more,
Well, and I
mean, not you, because
no, I won't be visiting that stuff.
That's not you, right? But you know what I'm saying. Like, so I mean, he was he's a straight, very good looking, younger guy.
Well, and he was just on Tyler's podcast, and I'm actually very proud of him because he has, had 1.5 million followers, and he had to get off because basically girls were sending him pornography.
So what you're saying is he got rid of his social media.
Yes, because that's what got him in trouble in the first place. Right. And
it's how people meet these days.
I know, but it's trouble because pornography was sent to him all the time. He said thousands.
Well, that's they're like trying to get his attention.
Yes, but that's looking for love in all the wrong places.
They're trying to get a rise out of him.
Well, the church lady mother is not going to ever agree with that.
Right.
So
but what I'm saying is, though, in his situation, like he just got a raw deal, and I think it's and he was supposed to be on the show. He's out of the country filming a movie.
Yes,
but he will come on. If we're renewed for season 2, we don't know yet. Did we get renewed? Is this you think?
Okay, good. Thanks.
So if they pick us back up, then he'll come on.
Go.
Otherwise, this is it. It was nice knowing, one and done.
Well, and I'm just so thrilled he's working again.
Yeah.
So thank God for that.
Yeah, and look, I think it's a slow process, and I think
you have to work your way.
Yeah, and I think and I think you need someone to believe in you and take a chance.
Right.
And I think in his situation, which we can pivot to this now, he's relying on studios, producers, to take a chance on him.
Right.
He can't rely on his fan base.
Right.
Like other people that have been canceled, most recently Kanye West.
Yes.
I don't know if you saw what's going on.
Well, a little bit, but you know a lot. You follow that a lot more than I do. So what is going on? Other people haven't seen it.
Right. So he went through, I don't know if you want to say mental illness episodes, but very strong anti-Semitic statements. And he released.
Okay. And let me just say this too, is, he is a professed Christian and Jesus was a Jew or is a Jew. He's alive. And how in the world can you be anti-Semitic and be a believer in Jesus? He was Jewish. God even came to the Jews first, then the Gentiles. So that's troublesome.
Well, that I don't have the answer for, but I can, whatever caused his episodes, He was canceled. Where Adidas pulled his Jeezy line and he was just basically done. And now he just had 2 successful concerts and he made like $33 million because I think it's the fans. And I think maybe the fans are more forgiving than studios or people they're afraid to take a chance.
Right.
But, so I think that's an interesting concept, how he's been. And now I've heard, which I don't know if it's out there yet, but he's in talks with Nike. Because Adidas dropped him.
Right.
But Nike is saying, well, maybe,
Right.
And he did apologize. And but.
Well, and that's very important.
Right. No, I think.
When you've hurt people, we've talked about this too. When you have hurt people, even if, Army did not do what these young women accused him of doing, it's still important to go to them and apologize and repent and to ask them for forgiveness, I believe.
See, I disagree.
Okay. That's why we're both here.
I don't think I think they should apologize to him for hurting him. But what did he do wrong? If it's consensual, if you say, I want to do a podcast with you, and I say, absolutely. And then 2 weeks from now, I regret doing, oh my God, why did I do that? Like, you don't owe me an apology. I agreed to it. So, these women all agree. He could apologize for, I'm sorry if I broke your heart.
Well, and that's what he was saying.
I'm sorry if I presented myself as the marrying type, not just the have fun in the bedroom type.
And he actually did do that.
Which I think
is very important.
Right, which I think he should do.
Right.
But I don't think you should apologize.
He hurt their feelings, he hurt their emotions. Right. And, they thought the relationship was more than it was.
Right. That I agree with, but I don't think he should apologize. I'm not sorry that I wanted to tie you up, if that's what he likes, But look, it's awkward because you're his mom. Look, do we know? You don't need to tell us. But we don't know what you and Michael did in the bedroom. We don't know. And that's your business. But you could have been the kinkiest people in all of Bel Air, for all we know. But you could have been. But it's your business. You were a married couple. And so it's no one's right to look into people's bedrooms if it's consensual. That's what I'm saying. And these women agreed to it. So,
they kept coming back.
Right.
That's for sure.
Right. So it's like, yes, he maybe he owes them an apology. I misrepresented myself.
Yes.
I was telling you this was more of a serious relationship than it was.
Right. And I'm sorry I hurt you.
But I wouldn't apologize for the things that happened. Absolutely not. Consensual things you don't apologize for. That's what I'd look,
Right.
I mean, I think, but again, back to his situation, I think it's like with Kanye West. So he asked for forgiveness.
Good.
And a lot of people forgave him. Mm-hmm. But I think it's interesting because we talked about this and we can now about Jesus forgiving.
Yes.
So this is where I have a problem.
Okay.
Okay.